All is well. Hey, good morning, everybody. Um, really excited to be here, welcoming you into this space if you're watching us in recording. And yes, this is the second She Divine Studies Forum, and we're really excited to share a panel of three presenters and a discussant with you. The topic is Cosmology, Calendar, and the Creatrix. And I'm just going to start us off. I'm going to introduce you the names of our participants. And you can go to the link if you'd like to know more about each of them. And as we move through each presenter, I'll introduce their title to you. So my name is Dr. Nane Jordan. And I would like to start the morning with a land acknowledgement. I live on the territory of the Coast Salish peoples, and I gratefully live here. Also, it's the lands of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. And we have people this morning from the west coast of North America, east coast of North America, and Northern Europe. Um, yeah, and so the presenters today will be Dr. Helen Benigni, uh, Ms. Kirsten Brunsgaard Clausen, and Dr. Helen Hye-Sook Hwang. And we have Ms. Freia Titland as our discussant. So we're going to go in that order of presenters, and we'll start off our morning. Actually, just before we start off, I want to let all of our panel know I'm going to give you 20 minutes and I'm going to give you a 2-minute warning. And I'm actually going to come in verbally and tell you that because it'll be hard for you to see me on the screen. So you'll hear my voice. Just excuse me ahead of time. I will interrupt you if you're going up. I'll give you the 2-minute warning. And then at the end of your presentation, I'll also just come in and say yeah, our timing is done for that. So yeah, we're going to hear from each presenter for 20 minutes. I just invite all of our attendees to make sure your mic is off unless you're speaking. Yeah, and I think that's our little bit of housekeeping for that. And yeah, just really welcoming everybody. And we'll open our panel on cosmology, calendar, and the Creatrix with Dr. Helen Benigni, whose presentation is called Goddesses of the Seasons.
Oh, good morning. The information that I'm giving you is from a translation of the Druids calendar in Western Europe called the Colony calendar and the Greek calendar in Attica, Greece. And in the four seasons, three of the seasons represent the grandmother in the summer, the mother in the fall, and the daughter in the winter. So I thought this season I would do the great goddess of the winter sky, who's the daughter. In Greek, you know her as Artemis, and in Celtic, you know her as Bridget. Okay, so on the calendar, the winter is the 12th, the first, and the second lunar cycles on the Greek and Celtic calendar. And each of those months has a theme, not only in the moon and in the night sky, but in the constellations. So the beginning of the season starts with, and behind me is the calendar itself. And this is where we are. Okay, so the season of winter literally starts with the star cluster priestesses. And the star cluster priestesses of the Hyades are the priestesses of Persephone, and they're piglets. And they are in the Thesmophoria. And that is in the third quarter moon of the 11th lunar cycle. So as we pass from the 11th to the 12th lunar cycle, the star cluster priestesses hand over the season from the Hyades to the Pleiades. And this is a very beautiful picture of the Hyades. And the Hyades are the face of the bull of Taurus. So when the full moon goes between the Hyades and the Pleiades on the ecliptic, that signals the beginning of winter. So the priestesses of the Hyades, of the Thesmophoria, are the priestesses of fertility and conception. So they plant the seeds in the winter. They plant them in the remains of the sacrificed pigs in the Thesmophoria, and this is an all-women's festival and in Greece. Okay, so that full moon passes between these two cluster priestesses, and again, the Hyades are the priestesses of Persephone, giving the Pleiades, the priestesses of Artemis, the winter, the signal that their season is about to begin. Now, for me, in the mountains of West Virginia, it's snow, and we have about a foot of snow right now. In Greece, it would be the winter rains. So the fertility, and I have to say that this is in the shape of a vulva, so it's the V. And I think that has something to do with it. So inception, conception, and the planting of the seed is this season. Then the next event in the sky, you start to see Canis Major and Canis Minor coming. And for all of these stars, you should go out at 8 o'clock at night when just the primary stars are visible. And the Druids suggest that you look to the northeast where they're rising. So in one season, these stars are all going to rise and come to the zenith and then pass. So now we've got the Pleiades in sight, and the next site coming up, the next rising stars are going to be Canis Major and Canis Minor. Now, the Canis Major and Canis Minor are the dogs of death, darkness, and winter. And Hecate is their representative. And she actually carries the seeds of the Hyades down into the underworld. And the underworld entrance at Eleusis, which is gorgeous temple, I've been there several times. This is the cave that Hecate goes into. And I think she probably took her dogs with her to go take Persephone back into the underworld, back to Mary Hades, back to conceive, and back into the darkness of the underworld. Hecate is a very old deity. She's a Titaness. She got darker and darker, but in Maria Gimbutas's estimate, she represented life, death, and regeneration. And she is also part of the Artemis Hecate combination of goddesses. So she appears first. So into the underworld we go, into winter we go, into the darkness with her dogs. And this is the cave that she goes into. Now in Celtic, the dark side of this winter, Hecate Artemis archetype is the Calibera, and I picked her throne at Lau Cru, which I visited. The Calibera is again a dark god of winter and of death. Then the next event on the calendar, that now we're into the first Samanos. In Greek, it's Pinapsion, and in Celtic and the Druids, it's Samanos. And this is now we hit the winter solstice. So on the Druid and the Greek calendar, you not only have the constellations and the moon, but they're also recording the solar energy. So I don't have to explain to you what the winter solstice is. You know. Here's a Newgrange, a picture of Newgrange in Ireland that records the winter solstice light enters the chamber tomb for 17 and a half minutes over this line that splits the egg called a ballon in Gaelic. And the patterns on the egg are going one way, and now they're going to change and go the other way. Because the solstice is the moment of the egg splitting in the womb. So it enters into this crystal window box, and the womb itself is Boan. This is the goddess Boan, the creator, and the Dagda of the Tuatha Danann, the fairy folk. His light is the 17 and a half minute shaft that enters the womb and splits by splitting the egg into twins. Now later in the Iron Age, those twins are represented by Nisan and Evison, Castor and Pollux. But at this point, we're just splitting the egg. What I think is interesting here is that the splitting of the egg also means that there are two aspects. So we've got this kind of double aspect of winter as Hecate, Artemis, and then the two twins, Castor and Pollux, later in Iron Age mythology. In early mythology, in the Neolithic, and this monument was built in 4400 BC. So in the Neolithic, it was just the mother goddess's egg splitting. And then in the later Iron Age, that split became Castor and Pollux, Helen and Clytemnestra, and the different figures, the figures of war in the Iron Age. Okay, so that's the splitting of the egg at New, and I picked Newgrange because it's the most spectacular. They do a demonstration of it while you're in the monument. Okay, and then the next thing you come to after the winter solstice is Artemis herself. And Nane, you'll like this. Artemis Aletheia is the midwife goddess. She's the goddess of the midwives. And I thought this was a cute little group of midwives. And Artemis is the goddess Artemis Aletheia is the midwife goddess. So then we have the actual birth coming out of the womb, not just the conception moment. But now we have the midwife moment itself. And these priestesses are the Pleiades, and they help give birth. Hold on, let me see if I have any notes about them. A lot of people are very interested in the Pleiades. The star cluster, other than the Pleiades, associated with them is called Persepi. And that's a star cluster that is in Cancer. And it is the gateway where souls pass to become humans through the birth canal of the goddess's body. So that this is where the individual is given a soul in the moment of birth. Okay, and then Artemis in the sky. Now we have Orion. At this point in the second lunar cycle, in Samanos, the end of Samanos, Orion will be at the zenith. She's out. She's coming out now. Now, the reason the constellation, it was named in the late Iron Age by the Greeks. So the constellation is named Orion. But before it was Orion, it was Artemis. Artemis Aletheia is one of her surnames. And then before that, Maria Gimbutas calls her the goddess of life, death, and regeneration. I call her the great goddess of the winter sky. So here she is. She's got a short skirt, which is classic. She's a virgin goddess. And she has her Pleiades, her midwives with her. And she has large shoulders. She usually is sometimes the lady of the beast in the Middle East with two animals, wild animals beside her. And, I don't have to tell you about Artemis. Most of you know. In Celtic, Orion is Bridget in Irish, Brigantia in Britain, Brigantu in Gaul, Bridget in Ireland, and Saint Bridget in Christianity. So she's a very powerful goddess and represented as Orion in the night sky. Okay, then in the third, I have this attached, but in the third lunar cycle, Dumanios, Bridget is then represented in a I don't want to say larger way, but in a way that links her to the precessional cycles of the moon, because we're going through these three lunar cycles, and the precessional cycles of the moon this year is very important, and it's January 13th is when the full moon in the second lunar cycle comes to what we call a major lunar standstill. Now, this will be recorded or actually happening at Chaco Canyon in the United States, and at Callanish in northern Scotland, and all over the world on different monuments. The 18.6-year cycle is when the moon is at its nodes, it's stretched to the end. In other words, if you look in the sky, the 18-year cycle of the moon is measured in the northeast. Every year, the moon rises just a little bit further south. So the 18-year cycle, the end of this is this year. So we're coming to a lot of cycles are ending. a lot of big cycles, and new ones will begin. So January 13th is this moon, and it's the end of this 18-year cycle. So the moon is at its furthest point, it's stretched, and in Chaco Canyon, it almost looks like it's below the horizon, that it's so low hanging. Okay, in Celtic and Greek mythology, this cycle is a larger cycle of birth. In other words, you have three cycles they did in their lives, 18 years old, 37 years old, and about 55 years old. We have another one. We have a fourth one, but they had three sacred cycles. And to renew those cycles every year, um, they call it Mircea Eliade calls it the eternal return of the goddess. And it's marked as a year of renewal. So if you think about it, at 18, of course, you know what renewal you go through. At 37's midlife crisis, 55.8, you move into retirement. And then the last cycle that you experience would be death and then to the next world. This is the stone at Nowit in Ireland, Curbstone 15, and you can see each of the moons is recorded and then reborn in the sky. And here's the moon. So that's a beautiful. I put the colors to it. It's a stone. Okay, it's also recorded on Stonehenge. And this circle right here is the 18.6, and then the 55 is this one on the outside. And then the other lunar cycles are the X and Y, and they're the moon, because the moon is 29.5 in its one lunar cycle. In Stonehenge, one circle is in the concentric circles, one is 29 stones and one is 30 to measure it. But on the inside is the 19. And then here's Callanish, and that's in Scotland. So this cycle is important, and it's important to the priestesses. It's important to the eternal return of cyclical regeneration, of which the goddess is responsible. The goddess is turning the wheels of time. The goddess is the lunar calendar. She's in conjunct with the sun and the stars, and especially the star cluster priestesses. And this is just a picture of the Minoan priestesses. Also at Knossos, the 19-year cycle at Knossos is the goddess and the bull. So it's called the Bucrania, and they mark it, and it's all over Knossos. You can see Bucrania everywhere. And then on Mount Jukas, to the left of the monument, on the hill, you can see a huge Bucrania. So these are the priestesses of Knossos in the Minoan era, which was we've been talking about matriarchy and matrilocal. If any culture comes close to a matriarchy, it would be the Bronze Age Minoan goddesses and their priestesses of the moon. And they of all the cycles in the sky, the 19-year was the most important to them. Okay, so just names. Maria Gimbutas, the great goddess, she calls this goddess of the winter sky, and her priestesses, the great goddess of life, death, and regeneration. Mircea Eliade calls her the eternal return of cyclical regeneration. And I'm just going to read her names to you. Artemis, Brigid, Brigantia, Brigide, Callisto, Alethea, Artemis Alethea, Finagula. These are the Celtic. Eton, Care, Dectine, Helen, Leda, Eurynome, Hecata, and Grion. So this is the great goddess of the winter sky. If anyone's interested, just, any question, I guess we'll have questions later. Nane, how much time do I have left?
You have 4.5 minutes.
Okay, I'm trying to think. It's hard to do this all in 20 minutes and give you an overview. If you look at the twin aspect is important. I'm going to go back to that for a minute. The goddess of the sky splits her egg. Eurynome was the creatrix herself in the early Greek myths, and she coils around the snake Ophion, and then she lays an egg and it splits. So she's the actual creatrix. Later in mythology, that goddess who laid the egg, it she had to be with a man, and in Greek it's Zeus and Hera, and in the winter, and in Celtic it's the Dagda and Boan. So that egg was then split, and then in terms of Greek mythology, they still have, because they named the constellations. Castor and Pollux are a set of twins that are up there, and then Canis Major and Canis Minor, the two dogs, are still up there. So you've got two sets of twins in the sky still. And if you remember, Castor and Pollux were there were two eggs, and one was Helen and Clytemnestra, and the other was Castor and Pollux. So you've got the idea of that splitting of the eggs, and then you have the idea of the midwifery. Very important. These were goddesses. These were priestesses representing the goddess on earth. And then again, just to go back to what I was talking about, the Hecate, the dark aspect of the goddess is there. It's not just Artemis. She has that darker aspect, represented as Hecate and the dogs. And then the bigger cycle and we don't always experience this. We only experience this every 18.6 years. So this is an exciting time for archaeoastronomers. Again, the Calibera, she's the dark side of the winter goddess in Celtic Irish. She represents the lunar standstills as well, and she represents eclipses. Hecate also represents not Calibera's lunar eclipses and lunar standstills, and Hecate represents lunar eclipses and lunar standstills as well.
We're at 2 more minutes if you want to think about what you'd like to wrap up with. Yeah, thank you.
Where I started, come full circle. And again, remember, when I say 12, 1, and 2, there's no beginning and end. It's a circle that is constant. So it repeats itself, the calendar. So there's no beginning and end, but I'm starting at the beginning of winter because that's what season we're in. Back to Persephone. Again, it started with Persephone going into the underworld, having her fertility with her, ready to conceive. Then Persephone chooses the soul. Then Aletheia, Artis from Aletheia, comes in as the midwife, and the Pleiades are all helping her. And then finally, in Imbolc, the last celebration here of Bridget, you're celebrating these processional cycles, so that the goddess is not just, doesn't just happen every year. It happens with the moon every 18.6 years, and then after that every 2,000 years, and then every 25,495 years. But the idea of eternal, you know what I mean, that these cycles are part of a larger concept. Okay.
Beautiful, thank you.
Okay.
And I think as we can have some discussion at the end of the presentations, and I really appreciate that presentation, Helen. And I think you also have a book published on that. So
Yeah. This is
another place to get more information on this beautiful unfolding. This is such deep work. So thank you. Gonna move on now to our next.
Get out of the share now.
Yes. Well,
Get
why
back
don't
to
you do
share.
that and then we'll
There we go.
do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd like to move on now to Kirsten Brunsgaard Clausen, and with your presentation on Grandmother Hel's 13 lunar month calendar in pre-Viking society of Scandinavia. So welcome, and
thank you so much. Let's see if I can share the screen here now. I would like to have this. Just a minute. I would like to have just let's see if I can do that. If I have the whole screen, I can't see you. So let's see if it works out if I do like this.
I think sometimes you do lose the participants view.
Yeah, is that so?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that now?
Yes. Yeah.
Let me see if I can make it bigger. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Is it
Great.
my turn to start?
Please go. Go ahead. You got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So my presentation today is an attempt to trace the pre-Viking Old Scandinavian calendar. And it seems that the Old Scandinavian culture was a late branch of the peaceful Old European society named by archaeologist Maria Gimbutas. Gimbutas discusses a possible understanding and calendar use of the moon phases back in the 5th millennium BCE. For instance, in her book, Language of the Goddess. And it is we have a Viking past here, so it's important for me to underscore that the patriarchal calendars, none of them are old in a true sense, and they're often based on a system of 12, and also paying specific attention to the 4 solar days, the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes. Whereas the pre-patriarchal or the matriarchal cultures are rooted in systems of the natural numbers 9, 13, and 19, and they comprise a year of 13 months, 28 days, and 1 extra day. A year based on 13 months and 1 day is a type of calendar that Helen Hwang has recognized for the archaic Mago civilization in East Asia. In Northern Europe that I'm familiar with, there are so many remnants and leftovers in traditions and sayings, indicating a former system of a 13 moon plus 1 day year. That it seems beyond doubt that this was the original calendar here too. Magdalena, my co-worker, and I started working on the old Scandinavian calendar in 2013. And in 2016, I was so delighted when drawing up my first 13 moon calendar of 28 days plus 1. And I saw how neat and useful it is. So when in 2018, I learned about Helen Hwang's research on the 13 moon calendar for Mago in East Asia from the other side of the continent, allegedly extremely old, it was a very welcome confirmation of the apparently extremely high antiquity of this calendar, originating from the overall matriarchal past. Thank you, Helen. So the old Scandinavian calendar is my theme today, and I will tell more about it. And I will see if I can click. Yeah, you got the extra day down in the corner. But first, a couple of words on the patriarchal calendars. Patriarchal societies denote warfare societies with male dominance, implying violence, rape, and weapons, in reality and in mythology. As a rule, these societies are written cultures. Thus, the Celtic, the Greek, the Roman, as well as the Christian and the Old Norse Viking calendars would all be patriarchal calendars, exclusively based on the solar year of 365 days divided into a systemic number of 12. They talk about 12 kings, 12 kingdoms, 12 golden dishes, and so on. So I said these 12 months calendars from writing cultures, they are all relatively young. Our irregular Georgian calendar is aesthetically not very pleasing, and it's constructed to make to function. go. Let's see if we can get further here. So when casting a glance towards the sky, people in ancient time had clocks and calendars right at hand in front of them all the time, day and night, all year round. The sun was a precise clock during the day, as we all know, but this clock didn't work at night, but the constellations did. Showing only the 4 solar cutting days, solstices and equinoxes called repa days in Scandinavian, the sun was no good as an everyday calendar. But the moon was. The waxing and waning, the full moon, the half moon, the black moon, new moon, and so on was perfect. A moon cycle of 4 quarters of 7 days makes 28 days. This was the base of every archaic calendar. Convenient, always at hand, everyone could tell the exact day in each of the quarters. Can you see what day this is on the picture? It's the 3rd quarter and it's the 3rd day. So you know exactly what day it is. The 4 moon quarters gave us the concept of weeks, and we have 52 weeks per year. We do not have a very solid information from early days in the Norse, but we do have testimony that they divided the year into 52 weeks on Iceland in the 10th century. But there is a catch. The length of one moon cycle is not exactly 28 days, but rather approximately 29.5 days. Our menstruation closely follows these moon cycles. This deviation means that the solar year of 365 days will contain either 12 or 13 lunations. A moon year consisting of full lunations will be either 354 days, 11 days too little, or 18 days too much. So in order to set up a calendar, one has to come to terms with the fact that the moon and the sun cannot be made to synchronize. As the moon quarters were fundamental every day and as the everyday calendar, this was a good idea to stick to the 4 moon phases of 7 days, providing a month of 28 days. This repeated 13 times gave a neat and even year of 364 days, only one single day lacking to complete the solar year of 365 days. So in a 13-month calendar, each month and each week starts with a resting day. It starts with Sunday. Every month starting with the Sundays as day number 1, automatically giving that, for instance, the day number 13 is always a Friday. I guess you recognize that. And when I was a child until 1973, Sundays figured in our calendars as the first day of the week. And that means in a 13-month calendar, if you're born on a Wednesday, you will always have birthday on a Wednesday. So as our menstruations are so closely synchronized with the moon waning and waxing, the moon's strong influence on all life on Earth was formerly self-evident. And women especially were linked to the moon. In patriarchal era, the sun, men, and number 10 or 12 replaced the moon, the women, and the 13-month calendar that was so associated with women and menstrual moon blood. So the number 13 became a bad number of bad luck. Based on a moon week, the solar year was divided into 13 months and 18 days and 1 extra day every year, making up 365 days. This type of calendar apparently prevailed in Europe until the rise of patriarchal rule, which in Scandinavian happened as late as 450 circa. Relics and hints about the former concept, a year and 13 months and a day, is still familiar to most people in Scandinavia. Asking my knowledgeable friend, she said that farmers knew about this, even Shakespeare knew about it, which I haven't checked out. And maybe you are familiar with the English expression within jurisdiction, a year and a day. Scandinavia, of course, has the same expression in everyday language, et år og en dag. When an extra day is mentioned in a year circle, it implies a calendar of 13 months and 28 days, nothing else. The superstition of Friday the 13th is already mentioned. In the Sleeping Beauty, there are 13 fairies, women, and 12 golden plates at the king's, now the ruling man's, table. The matriverse numbers 9, 13, and 19 appears again and again in Scandinavia, never forgotten. The Swedish Lucia is celebrated on the 13th December. It marks the first day of 13 equally long nights and days of midwinter. Lucia has 19 maidens, the number of years in a grand moon cycle. Each of these 13 Yule days and nights represent the following month of the year. And this is still enacted in the Icelandic tradition of the hag Grytla, who is Hel, the ancient mother of all, and her 13 now sons, representing each of the 13 months of the year. And this is, you can find this on Wikipedia, but also Valgerður Bjarnadóttir has written about this. Summer solstice has also 13 equally long nights and days. A season of each season has 13 weeks, and it was formerly called a tretting in Scandinavian, based on 13. And it says 3 trettings of the year, meaning three quarters of a year. Candles of wooden sticks were lit on the walls. An ordinary deck of cards contains 13 cards symbolizing each month. 4 colors are the 4 seasons of each 13 weeks. 52 cards, the number of weeks a year, plus a joker for the extra day. And the tarot cards, which I put out here, show the same fundamental pattern. But there's a lot more to say about that, which I shall not do today. But we have this extra day, and what to do about it. It has no name, and it has to be fit into the 364 day circle, but where to fit it in? We have no text to tell us exactly where to put this day. In principle, this day without a name could be fitted in anywhere. Most people would therefore think it's appropriate to wedge it in where the old year stops and the new year begins. And I think that's a legitimate suggestion. Only when did they celebrate New Year in old Scandinavia? If we did not know better, if the principles of this was not conveyed to us, New Year could have been just any day of the year. The patriarchal Viking society had their New Year celebrations on a solar day, a Repa day, either at midwinter when they had a big blood sacrifice, but more likely their new year was at spring equinox at an even bigger blood sacrifice. But not midwinter nor spring equinox would have been the old new year in the matricentric old Scandinavian society before the 5th century Common Era. Time is certainly not a line, as it is imagined in our patriarchal worldview. The word year, or in Scandinavian, means one turn or a complete circle. 1 year spirals into the next. It's a continued circle with no end and no beginning. Everything in our universe spirals and circles. On a spiral, there's no particular point marking out where the old year ends and the new year begins. That distinction is made by decision. But we do have principles that will guide us, and we have still living traditions and celebrations. The old inescapable principle reads, rest before work. New beginnings starts with rest for planning, visions, ideas, dreams. Any new beginning starts with peace, time off for sleep and dreams and introspection, inwardness, tranquility, and time off, leisure time spent together for the sake of building up energy for the new approaching. Until recently, Sunday used to be the first day of the week. Still today, the church bells in Sweden will ring in Sunday at sunset, 6 p.m. on Saturday night. Sunday itself starts with a good long night's sleep, and the week started with Sunday rest. In Scandinavia, still all of the 8 annual celebrations are celebrated from sunset onwards on the night before. Thus, Christmas or Yule on the 25th December is still and only celebrated after sunset on the 24th. Not at all on the 25th. The same is true for Easter, for Midsummer, and for Hell's Night, Halloween, you call it, and so on. So Hell's Night, in the beginning of November, very clearly marks out the transition from activity into winter's rest. At Hell's Night, harvest is completed, work is done. Bears and hedgehogs have withdrawn into their dens, trees have dropped their leaves and will now sleep in their roots. Nature will rest from now on to gain energy for the next summer. Not long ago, people's ages were counted in winters. She is 19 winters old, they would say. Hel is a mythical mother of all. She will oversee and keep guard all through the harsh winter while the world is resting and dreaming. She is the luck in the chain of the year spiraling into the next. This is by all means where the new year was once celebrated. This is where the extra day was properly fitted in Scandinavia. Granting her this no-name day seems appropriate, dedicating it to the great spinner at a silvery seat at the North Pole star, faithfully turning the universe, the Yoni-verse, or as Helen names it, the Matriverse.
Kirsten, we're at the 2 minutes, so yeah.
I'm just about finished.
Beautiful, thank you.
Also, according to the pre-Celtic calendar, Samhain, I don't know how you pronounce it, was always or has always marked out the new year. Harvest and a long summer's hard work concluded, an extra day off or two for celebrating together must have been welcomed. The big bonfires were as always lit at sunset, and people would come together bringing baskets of their plentiful fruit of harvest and sing and dance all night, as we still do today.
Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I just love the weaving so far. There's so much rich connections and so beautiful to have all of this information coming forward. So we're going to finish our beautiful panel with Dr. Helen Hye-Sook Hwang. And Helen's presentation is titled A Brief Soteriological Discussion of the Ninefold Cosmic Muse. So please take it away, Helen. Just take your mic off too, please, Helen.
Yes. Do you see my screen now?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Here. Yeah.
Okay. I was so observant in the previous presentations, and now I have a little bit slightly shifted topic. I'm not talking about calendars per se, but what makes it what makes our search or our understanding, our consciousness of the goddess or the great mother salvific to us. What is it? Why is it? You know, we are doing it all here, and we're not the only ones, but the search, the memory, the endeavor to hold on to the Divine Mother is salvific. That's what I am saying it. And I'm going to explain it today, how it is. Let me see, Nane again. For others, please keep the time, 2 minutes before. Just let me know. And the image that I have here, probably you are familiar with. This is Kuma, right? She's riding on a dragon, right? Dragon. And she has 4 arms and holding the sun, the moon, and she's writing down the law. So for this, I'm calling her the teacher, the savior, and the civilizer. It's going to come back anyhow. So I use this image to capture what my presentation is about. Here, in order to present this one, I realized there is a block in our modern mind, especially scholars, that when it comes to the sort of a universalism, okay, putting together the divine and the society, the nature, putting together, and scholars, or when the scholars don't do it, and usually it doesn't go directly to the people that. So they call, you know, when I was also in graduate studies, and the huge fear or huge guard was that totalitarianism, you know, Christianity, the Almighty God, this is all totalizing. So they abandoned, the religion. We call the patriarchal religion, but the Christianity and Buddhism, it's not much focused, but I am following this Buddhism too, that they abandoned this one because it's propagating totalitarianism, making it all one. So but I'm saying that's a patriarchal totalitarianism. But what really needed universalism. We need to gain this consciousness in order to help not only us, but the nature, the animals and the plants, how they are suffering. So we need hold this universalism. So that's why I'm going it. And I'm not just, this is not my invention. My scholarly research begins with Magoism. Now Magoism, I define it the way of the Creatrix. Mago is the Creatrix. What Creatrix means, like in Helen Benigni's presentation, it's an egg, but actually it's the main source. There is no above the Creatrix. That's what I mean. It's not something issued from something else. Anyhow, I am going to introduce to you, probably if you've been around with the Mago work, that it's the cosmic music that comes in the Mago's cosmogony, right? That Mago's cosmogony means the story or the account of creation, to put it simply. That cosmic music is at the center of this Mago's cosmology. But what is cosmic music? I'm going to unpack the cosmic music. When we think of music and the numbers, right? Music, it's very interesting. In modern music, also we have 8 tones, right? But when we say it's a tone, it goes with the numbers because the tones are all different. It goes exactly, what you call, almost accurately. I don't want to call it mechanically, but it goes higher. The frequency, if we count them, the music as frequencies, it goes by exact numbers, right? So in order to do it, I went into, actually, this is the book that actually decided my sort of destiny, because once I run into this book, I just couldn't stop thinking of this book. So I decided to study, and that was the year 2000. And it begins the first 4 chapters. By the way, the 13-month calendar that Kirsten presented, this book, the Budoji, the principal text of Magoism that I call, has 3 chapters about the 13-month, 28-day calendar. And it gives actually what you call the theoretical background. It's consciousness about number 9. That's what I'm going to talk about today. The music is also a 9-fold cosmic music. I said the numbers and the music are the actually different names, but referring to the same entity, the same thing. So we're going to the Budoji, but if you have questions, please ask me later. I'm going to skip all the details about the text too. When I first read the Budoji, it's got 33 chapters. In my articles published in the She Journal that I gave the introductory information about the text of Budoji. That first 4 chapters are dedicated to the cosmology creation stories. And the next one is like a paradise lost. The paradise gets lost there. So I'm just covering the first 4 chapters. And I say of course, it's alleged, this text came to known as the late 4th or early 5th century. But it was introduced in modern times, the mid 1980s. See, so there is a lot of debate about it, but let me just go around. I don't want to get into all the debates because spending my life wouldn't be enough for to defending this one. But here's the way that I'm doing it here. This is pre-patriarchal. Why do I say it? There is no mention of even father, rape, or killing. There is nothing like that. You will have some samples. But the language is very, let's say, it's not modern. It's not a story. It's not the, but anyhow, but folklore also comes in, make sort of a meaning to the common people. Then we have a similar stories. But the Budoji itself is somehow a philosophical text. You will see it. Now, these are the mentions of the cosmic music, right? In the beginning, there was nothing. It's one beginning, because there are the cosmic periods are threefolded. You know, everything is threefolded. You will know why, because this whole text is underscore the ninefold cosmic music. It's all about 9, and 3 is only epitome. It's summary of the number 9. You know, 3 times 3, right? When we see 3 for the ancient people, ancient Magoists, it's number 9. So there was cosmic music, and this cosmic music rose. It has autonomous. You know, it's like frequencies in the air. Just like that, it rises, it declines, right? It's just like music coming. Cosmic music rise and decline, rise and decline, and then as it goes and stars are born. That's what it is. When the cosmic music autonomously rise and stars are born, and the stars, including the Milky Ways, because we're gonna now it's zooming into the Earth, and then we got 2 satellites, like 2 moons. It is mentioned 2 moons. Anyhow, the Earth was born. These are all came from the cosmic music, right? And the thing is, when this begins, the Mago came. The text says that Mago also came from the cosmic music. So this is consciousness also came together. You know, when there are, remember that I always put it together, the reality that we here now, right? It's all upper cases, but it cannot be separated. For us to perceive that, you know, we are there, right? Consciousness is there, and time and space, these are the same thing, right? So I always say we here now. Anyhow, so Mago represent this reality of we here now. Okay, these are the mentions. Actually, I published the first 4 chapters of the Budoji as a workbook, so that's available. And that's how it begins. Look at this. There is a Mago came, and then without spouse. It mentions like without spouse. That's why this parthenogenesis. Remember that I was focusing on parthenogenesis too, and then it has resonances in other words, mythologies. That without spouse, Mago gave birth to 2 daughters. And that these 2 daughters, Helen B mentioned about twin, right? The twins, and here's the twins too. And then the 2 daughters each gave birth, actually 2 sets of twins, 2 sets of twins. That makes 8, right? So it goes from 1 to 2 and 2, 4, 8, right? These sort of a procession or proceeding of the numbers. It's all about 9 numerology. I'm getting into it. So from there, we have this, it's called, they are referred as a couple, so it becomes 4 heavenly beings, because it's also 4 also signifies the 4 directions. You know, when there is a space, and then naturally the consciousness goes, you know, to know the directions, right? And then 4 elements. We have the 4 elements, water, air, and earth, and fire, right? And that goes. Okay, so now I'm going to go. These are the chapter 2 and 3 that I quoted here. And I'm going to come back here to explain about the numeric implications, numbers. Why is this all number indicated? Okay, I guess I'm going to move the next one about the numbers, right? So, okay, cosmic music is good, but what about the number 9? You know, because the cosmic music is referred to 8 tones. In Korean, 팔 is 8 tones, or sometimes rhythms and tones, or sometimes essential music, heavenly music, heavenly numbers. These are the terms, actual technical terms referred in the Budoji, right? But look at this, we see the numbers and the number 8 only. And that was the question from a person that in another presentation of mine, I'm going to say, so I explained number 9 is not the regular number. Number 9 is the mother number. So it's like I have the analogy, the created analogies that number 9 is the first ancestor, whereas the 8 numbers are the currently existing descendants of the first ancestor. So number 9 is represented, right, by the current number 8. See this one, if we extend a little this analogy to little ones, that we don't see the number 9, the mother 9, because it's all represented by the things that have forms. You know what I mean? That all things that are visible or tangible, those are represented in number 9. Then can we see, how do we know the number 9 is there? That I'm going to explain about numerologically. And this is coming from the text Budoji. Budoji is from the chapter 1 all the way through. It's all about 9 because it's the mother principle. It's the mother number. It gives the mother. And that's why this Budoji doesn't need dogmas, no indoctrination, because it goes into the principle of nature, because the 9th mother. Now here, I think this system of digital root 9, I don't know if you're familiar, but anyhow, the things that have forms in the matriverse, I call it matriverse universe, maternally perceived universe, that represented the combination of 9 numbers. Actually, 9, we will see 9 is fully visible and fully invisible. It's like our first ancestor. We know we are from there, we are offspring, but we don't see it. Then we expand, because our view, our consciousness is already far extended to embrace all. We're not really focusing on the 8, siblings. 8, we always included the 9th. Anyhow, probably because of the time, I got a Goma part 2. But look at this. Where do you see this number 9 there? This one, this diagram, you can really, this is very scientific actually, that you can even see it with a simple graphic and numerology. This pattern is called the seed of life. Basically, it's 8 spheres. One is here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Where is the 9? Because it's a sphere. It's the 8th is the right back. So if you flatten this one, it sees this one. This patterns comes. These are also in Buddhism. If you go to a Korean Buddhist temple, these patterns comes everywhere. Actually, you will see everywhere. That if you take 3 numbers that are nearby, let's say like that, you see 3 plus 2 plus 5, right? It always comes in number 1. See that one? Whatever 3 numbers that supports, like then if you do this one, 1 plus 4 plus 6, let's say 1 plus 4 plus 6 is supporting 2, right? Right here. And then let's do this way. Okay, 7 plus 4 plus 1, 7 plus 4 plus 1. It's number 3 right here. Look at this. So these number, you know, the seed of life. Why is it called seed of life? This structure is in everywhere. It's all in patterns. We're getting into this micro cells, microcosmic world, right there.
Helen, we're at 2 more minutes.
Okay. I know. Anyhow, so where is the number 9? Number 9 is, you just divide 1 and just across 1 and the back, right? It's number 9, 1 and 8, 3 and 6, just cross across 3 and 6, right? Number 9, 7 and 2. So 9 is already fully eminent here. So number 9 is fully transcendent and eminent number. Okay, I'm gonna use the last one plus time here in coma. Now, this consciousness, okay, this Budoji consciousness, the cosmic music ninefold, where does it come from? This is come from, I say, the teaching of this coma. This is, she is horribly, completely forgotten. That because it's this whole thing is forgotten, she's gone forgotten. But there's some element that her teaching of this ninefold cosmic music is relying on her cytological discoveries. She got all these things from the whales. So it goes to the pre-patriarchal times, right? And here, what really binds together is this number 9. You see all number 9. Homa here, she had also 8 queens. She did, her confederacy is 9 sub-states. She's the mother queen. She's the mother, and she has the 8. And it becomes, when they each send 9 queens, it makes 81. This is how it comes. Okay. Now this
Helen, just so you know, you're going over. Do you want to suggest something for a couple of minutes to complete your talk?
Yes, will that be possible? Just
I'll give
I'm
you 2
almost
minutes.
done. Look at this.
I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much. That Koma, when I say Koma, the Koreans know because it's well known. She is the bear sovereign woman. Bear. This is the bear. We're gonna get into this one. But she's also known as quantum. It is a name very strange, but it's actually even in India that she's known as Avalokiteshvara. That's her Keshtavara. That's Indian, Sanskrit name, but it's quantum. Look at this, how it comes. 8 sets of arms, right? That's what it is. It's a quantum. And then in quantum also, quantum comes with 9 dragons, water and all this one. It's just one example. So a lot of major goddesses of across cultures, including Mary, because of the parthenogenesis, because of the Trinity, that's also very, very close to Goma. Because here's the one, this is my last image, that it's not only there Ursa Major, Kirsten focus, well, not in this presentation before, this is Ursa Major at the Big Bear, right? And this is the clock that people could tell the clock. But not only that, here's a North Star, right? And it's like it goes around. It's the cosmic mills. That's what Kirsten mentioned. And then here, look at this Draco. That's why I am, this supports the constellation, the names of the constellation supports this original Trinity. You see, the North Star is associated with the Creatrix, the mother, the first mother. And then this one, Ursa Major, the bear goddess, and then dragon, here's the citation, whale, divine mother. So the earth, actually whale represent the earth, and the coma represent the human world, whereas the Creatrix Mago represent actually this whole multiverse. That's it. That's the end of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you all. Beautiful, just such beautiful work to bring together. And Freya, I just invite you as our discussant to step in and offer comments, reflections. And do you feel that you would need timing? I'm not sure how you're presenting. Shall I give you a 20-minute or a 15-minute? What would you like? I can give you the 20.
You could give me a 15, I think. I have
Okay.
my reflections are a bit structured in a way to invite some comments from the presenters, if that's okay. I have a reflection slash question for each presenter, and then something that I think connects all of them, though they connect in many, many ways, but something that stood out for me. So I'm going to start with Helen B. Thank you so much. That was so interesting. And I loved being able to read things ahead of time. I was on the subway in New York City, like, wow, wow, making all the faces at everyone's papers. So thank you so much for that. I really love this idea of beginning to return to following the cycles of nature in small ways in our own lives. You know, we are up against these structures that we may not have control over. But this idea that we can begin to follow them in these little ways, in personal ways, I think is really powerful. And there's obviously mythic evidence across all ancient cultures that honors these moon cycles in connection to ancient mothers and ancient goddesses. And I'm wondering if you think that by honoring these cycles in these really small ways in our own lives, can we help to undo some of this patriarchal harm and lead us back into a more egalitarian, balanced way of living? I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I do. If the calendar that starts the lunar cycles is conjunction with the sun and the constellations in the Druid calendar, as well as the Greek. And Helen was talking about that conjunction. Oh, I'm sorry. Kirsten was talking about that conjunction. But in the Celtic calendar, the sun and the moon come together because the moon has 355 days to go when it goes around the sun. At the same time, it's 365 for the solar. So in order to create a solar lunar calendar, you have 10 extra days of the moon each year. So if the solar represents mostly the masculine forces and the lunar represents most of the feminine forces, the conjunction of those two is essential. And we now live on a solar calendar. So in order to understand the feminine side of reality and the goddesses that we worship before, it's integral to have that sun-moon calendar and not really get rid of either one. The Druids took that sun moon calendar, and again, the 355 days as opposed to the 365 of the sun and the 355 of the moon. And every 2.5 years, every 2.6 years, they put in what's called an intercalary month. And that was considered the 13th month. So the coming together of the sun and the moon is very important. And then the constellations tell stories. But I think those two forces coming together is the only way we can move forward, by acknowledging the lunar cycles in conjunction with the solar.
Yeah, thank you. I think that that's a really beautiful reflection because I know there's, if we look to social media, for example, there's always a lot of chatter and conversation around, well, feminism means that we just want to hate this and hate that. And what really is we're coming into union together with everyone. And so this idea of not just getting rid of something and benefit of something else, I think is a really nice principle that's coming forward. And I think that's a really nice way to live in balance as well in our own lives. So thank you so much for that. Kirsten, hello. That was such a great presentation. I loved all that imagery as well. And I'm actually seeing that there's this connection between your work and what you were talking about today with what we call, I'm so glad you had that symbol there, the witch's new year in Samhain, in the Celtic Samhain and in October. And Helen B, the darkest month of Edrenios. I hope I'm saying that right. And with this sunset marking the beginning of a new day so that we can rest in the dark. But I'm wondering also, how do we reconcile these different times between, you know, we have a year cycle of daytime and a year cycle of nighttime. How do we honor, and this is one of the ways that connects a lot of this work, right? But how do we honor both of those cycles to create more harmony and balance? If you have any reflections on that.
Yeah, I'm not very much into the witch thing, the first thing to
That's
say.
okay.
I think the witches are the women, the leader women of the old societies that were accused of being witches. They were women. It was a women persecution. There were no witches. My instant reflection is very much talk about men and women and how to harmonize that. I think in my presentation, it was not very much about women and men. It was, I have a feeling that gender was not such a big thing, and maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe we should just walk out and take a look at the sky and see all of these natural things going on there together. There is not necessarily the solution, I think, with male and women are not necessarily that we should focus very much on that. Instead, we should look at the child, look at the world, look out, and not have this dualistic concept of women on one side and men on the other side. I think it's time to leave that somehow and look at the child, look at the future, look at the world around us, and learn from the world and the circles, the spirals, the constellations. I'm very inspired of going out myself and trying to figure out what time it is by looking at the moon, looking at the constellations. And we have a great lesson to learn, I think, there.
Yeah, thank you. You know, what's coming forward for me in this talk and in your reflection, you're saying, look at the child, look out. And when you look out, you're looking out onto the horizon. And so you're seeing the sun dipping down and you're seeing the sky. And when we look out, instead of down at our phones, at our computer screens, when we look out, we see our connection to nature, our connection to the cycles. You know, I think our ancestors were very smart, a lot smarter than what many give them credit for. And they lived interconnected with the nature and they looked out. And to me, it feels like when we look out onto the horizon and into the sky, we are connected back in that cycle of never beginning and never ending. I think that's really nice. Thank you. Helen. So I am not by any means a Mago specialist, but for my literature review, I actually read one of your books and I ended up reading the Budoji. And so I've got a little bit of an understanding. And so I know that there has been some scholarly discussion around certain instruments and objects that were mentioned in the Budoji still being utilized by shamans in Korea today. Do you find any evidence or maybe a discussion around people who are still using or referring to the cosmic music in spiritual or religious practice today?
Okay, let's see if we unpack Korean shamanism. By the way, sometimes I had to use the term shaman, right? But this shaman is not really addressing Korean shamans. It's they call, you know, I'm not sure. It's they traditionally they're called mudang. You know,
Mm-hmm.
mu is the translate in the English language. Mu, Tang is the center of that, you know, that shamanism is. The Mudang, I had a little conversation with the Koreans too lately. Korean mudangs are not introduced to the West in particular. You know why? Because it's a completely matricentric, matriarchal, matriversal. Because the West has not known this, you know, the original matricentric um, uh, religious tradition. That's Koreans, right? So when it comes to the Muist, I'm going to call Muist, right? It's Muist rituals. By the way, it's very pervasive, right? And a lot of Muist rituals manifest as in the form of a dragon. It's a cetaceanism. And dragon, when I say dragon, being the symbol of whales, divine divinity. That helps, that embrace the whole thing, right? So the dragons, you know, the actually mudangs are mudang, or they're called the mother of the dragon palace, right? They're actually sitting on the dragon. When it comes to the music, right, they have I want to just address this simple thing. They have the bells, you know, that house, sometimes 8, 9, 12 modern shamans, and then they have the fan. So when they begin, whatever, here it is, they are calling this is, oh, by the way, the archaeologist, I share this one, this 8-armed mudangs, what do you call that? Small bell, chime bells, and they shake it. You know, that means that's the, you know, the kind of music that I'm talking about. It's not melody. It's not like a really soft music that is good too. In our no, it's we're going into the sort of consciousness, because the music that is referred in the Budoji is the frequencies. It's the quality of being. You know, the things that have forms we emit, like, you know, we emit the frequencies. Sometimes these frequencies are too high. You know, when it's at the earth and the we don't hear these stars, you know, bombing, because we humans are made to hear only certain range of the music, right? So like blue whales, they sing in a so low frequencies, so we don't catch it, but whales catch it, animals catch it. So anyhow, the music that you wanted to relate with the music idea, right? It's not really a melody, but you know, there's always chanting. You know, there's a movies, lyrics are always chanted as a song, and that is transmitted to that one. So they shake this one, and probably mudangs themselves won't say it, but I want to tell them that this has also reminder of the salvific nature of the ninefold cosmic music, and then calling. Because the whale songs are actually, it nourishes, it goes with the what do you call that, the weather, the circulation of water on the planet. In that sense, people might wonder, you know, why all of a sudden the whales, but the whale is dragons also. Dragons a symbol, right? It goes from the sea. So it refers, the whale divinity is the actually the force that moves around the water from the sea to the bottom in the air. Well, you and I are connected here because in the air there's water, right? That connects. Anyhow, so when mudangs do this one, that kind of consciousness that it brings, so it comes with a sound, more sound, like that, not in a modern sense of music per se. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, there was there were a lot of things that connected all of these presentations, but something I had written down and for anyone to jump in and reflect on is that it seems like a rejection of patriarchal time telling and a return to more of a matrifocal time telling returns us to being in balance with the cycles and the earth and the cosmos. And I wonder about what a future like that might look like, or how we can do that in the here and now. If you have any other reflections on that. Anyone feel free to jump in.
Mine's kind of obvious. It starts today and it ends another month. So I just follow this calendar and I go stargazing and I watch the stars and the sun and the moon and I keep track of it. And I've been doing this for 20 years. So it becomes, part of your life. And to look up in the night sky to tell time and to realize again both the feminine and the masculine powers that exist. But to do that gives you a grounding if you tell time by the night sky rather than the solar that we're on now, because of climate change and so many changes in political structures. The sky's not going to change. The sky, and I like, Helen, I loved your mention of the Nine and the pregnancy associated with it. And Freya, I really appreciate. I think it was well, no, Helen, you had that picture of the stars that circumnavigate the North Pole. They are the most stable because we see them all year and we can follow them, where the seasonal constellations come and go and change. But that pattern of Draco and Polaris, that's the stable pattern. And we need that stability of the night sky. And telling time by the night sky is very important.
Thank you.
It's there.
I would even like to say something, Freya, that I'm just observing, if that's okay, to help spark something too, because I really think there's this beautiful. I am curious, but before I go there, I really want to sit just for a moment with this beautiful notion that Kirsten brought up of the rest, and that cosmologically, the rest is within the cycle. And it's very much a part of the calendar that the patriarchal, capital, kind of economic driven, economic in a certain kind of economy, not necessarily gift economy, we've lost the rest. So the rest in the dreaming and I don't know if it's that it's to do away with patriarchal calendar in the sense of that's solar, that's always going on whether we like it or not. We're in the solar, we're in the lunar. I really appreciate this return to being with, which is the midwife, being with the birth, the rebirthing that is so continually naturally there, whether we are, whatever part of that we're participating in as human beings with. And the whale part to me, Helen, connects the ocean, Mother Earth, Mother Ocean, with the whale beings, with our lives, and then to the cosmos. Like, I think there's something about that. In an indigenous context, we would do like a water ceremony to bring the water in, and there might be some sounding and speaking and connecting with that ocean, but I'm hearing that is connected to Nine. The whales are doing that. Again, they're doing it whether we're acknowledging or paying attention. But when we're paying attention, wow, we're in another world. We're in the matriverse when we're paying attention. Isn't it, Freya, that question of how do we return? We pay attention. We look at the sky. The work that the three of you are doing is really deeply documenting, bringing out, showing all these layers that at one sense that are lost and at another sense are completely always present. We can't lose these materials. We just have to we're not human without all that going on. That is completely what has made us. That is number 9. She gave birth to it, us.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of weave for each of you. And unless you had something else too, Freya, I wouldn't mind hearing you 3 speak to each other a little bit in this context, what you might have noticed that you might want to speak back towards each other. Would that be okay to offer? We have about 20 minutes left, so we do have time.
Yes, please.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
that,
I'd
Freya.
like to answer your question, Freya. I loved your question. And what do I see in the future? I see that, as you said, Nana, the spiral is going on, and you can decide where it stops and where it starts. You can decide that you want to take rest before and not, as we do now, we are exhausted and we rest after work. But everybody work, and of course they get tired, but that's not the focus. The focus is that now you rest and get some new energy, and then you're off again. And what I imagine is looking at the Mother Hell sitting in the North Pole star, spinning, circling, spinning continuously, fourth life. This, as you talk about, Helen, also life is we here now. It's not, we have to get the images in our heads that that life was not created a long time ago and it will end sometime. It's going on and on and on. And we must have fun, and we must meet below the mother sky and hell, who is sitting there spinning, and have fun, dance in circles, and see how they made cosmological landscapes. At the bogs, they were dancing. They had the big bear as the wagons. They had the stone as the North Pole star. And they were circling and spinning, and they were gaining a lot of energy, as you do when you spiral. So that's what we are trying to what do you call it? Take back these old ceremonies and have fun together. And being together, and get ourselves new images, and yeah, I see a lot of fun ahead of me, and I loved your question, Freya.
I was going to say, since we talked the last time we had a Zoom on the calendar, you two on either side of me are presenting the 13-month calendar, and here I'm presenting the 12-month lunar solar calendar. And I don't think it's a choice between one or the other. I think the two of them can coincide. And to get back to what Kirsten was saying, one seems like an inner peace for women, the menstrual calendar, obviously, and the other seems like a coming together, like you were saying, Freya, of masculine and feminine. I think we need both. I think we need both. We need that. Do you know what I mean? We need that feminine introspection. We need the matriarchy within a larger context of an egalitarian society. And so it's not, I don't think it's a choice. Do you see what I'm saying? I think you can learn. And since I learned so much from listening to Helen's calendar and now listening to Kirsten's, it's like you can use all of them at once, I think. Yeah.
Can I add now here that one thing that is clear while I was working on this number 9 and the Trinity, that Kirsten briefly mentioned that getting out of dualism is a way to move out of patriarchy. So specifically, masculine and the feminine, this is a diet. It's a modern diet. It just blocks the people's mind. Remember that I've been always saying the mother principle. It's a mother. In the ancient mind, by focusing on the mother, the sons and daughters are there. there. But in our time, right, especially in modern times, when let me put it this way: patriarchy rules. I'm going to get into a 12-month calendar too. Rose by focusing about the equality between the feminine and the masculine. That's a patriarchal way. By doing that, they get rid of this creatrix, the mother principle. They put out. Of course, then they need a father god, right? Because it's all about what you call the equality. No. The Nine principle is not. We are getting out of dualism. So masculine, when we focus on any myths, and then, the myth always talk about the father and the mother, it's too violent. It's all about rape, which, tell me, which mythology that is ancient talks about both men and women. They don't talk about rape or kidnapping. This is what Buddhaji say, that Helen, that I haven't said it, but you are saying 12 months, how the 12 months became known, being in use. That's because of the rise of patriarchy. A moon calendar, it begins with the moon calendar. But let's put it down. Let's not personalize it. It's your culture, my culture. Let's just down it. See it as a possibility. That I left one chapter in my calendar writing because that's a little bit complicated. So I wanted to explain what it is first, and then I am about to do it. And you came along, so I just couldn't say it because you are getting out of that 12-month moon calendar. But that is the exact calendar that Chinese calendar, so-called Chinese moon calendar. Koreans moon calendar, they go with that one, that actually what Kirsten said, I think that could be possible. There was 13-month calendar that pregnancy is 10 months. Koreans call the baby is in the mother's womb for 10 months. I wrote it there. There was 13-month calendar. And then what I wanted to just sort of support Kirsten is because when we think of only 1 year as a unit, then it seems like the sun and the moon does not synchronize. That's not true. It's just not aligned within a week. But when we open it up with a 4 years, it goes. Everything is synchronized. When it's not synchronized, we cannot be here. It clashes like it's a catastrophes will happen. When calendar collapses, that's the end of, it's just huge. In the Buddhaji also, like beasts like babies would born. You know what I mean? When this whole system collapses. So calendar is very important. Not only just for us to look at the moon, no. It's the number one number one thing, foundation for the rulers. It's about ruling. It's about it's about politics. It's for the rulers, leaders. That's why religions, and then this one came, and then this introduction of patriarchy. Right? When I say patriarchal rule, that they need a male principle, and that comes with a 12-month, because it's when you divide it becomes.
Let me say something. The 12-month calendar goes back to the Neolithic period. And the Neolithic period had 3 goddesses: the goddess, the grandmother of the summer, the mother of the fall, and the daughter that I went over for the winter, and the son of the spring. So that's 3 goddesses and 1 god. The patriarchy calendar came much later. This calendar goes back to the Neolithic and a matrilocal tradition of 3 goddesses and 1 god. And the 1 god is the spring god. So it's not half and half. It's 3 grandmother, mother, and daughter, and then son. It's matrilocal. It's not matriarchy, but it's matrilocal. So that's Neolithic Europe and Neolithic Western Europe, and of course Greece. So it's not equal. That didn't happen until 580 BC. This calendar goes back to 6000 BC. So for 5,000 years, you had a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter, and then one son. And that's the basis of Gimbutas's work. So it's not, I say egalitarian, and we can't ignore what happened. Yes, the patriarchy was awful. It was rape. It started in 580 BC in the Demes of Greece, and it was an awful experience, and I agree with you, but this calendar goes way further
That's
back.
good.
Yes, that's why I believe in it, not because it's
But no, I was talking about 12 months. I'm not talking about the calendar, but introduction of 12 months, according to my research and my data. That's what I mean. Also, when we argue this,
12 months, the 12 months went way back to the Neolithic, to the farm.
right? But when we do this one, when we do Neolithic, 5,000 years, whatever, 6,000 BCE, you have to consider linguistics too. In another group that I discussed with other scholars, that actually the Indo-European languages already, when it went to Europe, it's already patriarchal because it came with Indo-Europeans. So
this is Proto-Indo-European. This calendar is Proto-Indo-European and was only recorded on the stones in the Bronze Age, which was 3200 BC. This is Proto-Indo-European. And the language came later. But this goes before. This is Proto-Indo-European, Proto-Germanic as well.
Okay. When there is really, we couldn't really reach any mythology or, I mean, linguistically, when there is no Proto-Indo-Europeans, and it was hard. So
no,
that's just
there's
the way that
Proto-European languages in the Basque countries and in Minoan Crete. Linear A, Linear B, and the Basque language is Proto-Indo-European, and they're older, they're Neolithic, and Gimbutas has proven that they were matrilocal cultures. So yeah, this goes way back. This doesn't just, this is the recent version. This is not the old version. This is based
but
on,
the thing is,
they took the knowledge of the stones and they put it on bronze. And then they continued to use it.
but there's a difference. That's what I'm saying. There's a difference. Only number 3 is there, and there is no male god here in my context. It's only the mother divine.
Right, and the Trinity is the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter.
Oh, no, that's just one of the, I believe that is a modern interpretation. Some say that it comes Robert Weiss, the white god. What is a Robert, what's his name? The white god, the author of the...
Not from Robert Graves, it's the old Trinity of the Neolithic cultures.
The white goddess, yes.
Right, it's Robert Graves, not
yes.
getting that from Robert Graves.
They say that came from it. But when someone says, so let's not repeat what is written, but let's just really get to the what does he, when Helen, when you say this is the dark goddess, what does that dark goddess mean? It's like a memorizing things, because it's, what does this darkness means?
Winter.
Huh?
Hecate, Kirsten is a lot like hell. She's winter. She's the darkness.
Yes, the dualism is already working there, dark and the light, and then it's, of course, we will break out of this dualism. Dark and light, is that what you're, so that's why the Hecate is the dark goddess versus white day or night. Is that
she's the dark of the new moon? There is the dark of the new moon is part of it, as is the full moon.
Yeah, what does that mean? That is dark goddess. What does dark goddess mean? So what that's already dark goddess means.
Can I interject for a minute? I really appreciate this passion. I'm not sure if we're going to resolve this in just as we are coming to nearing the end of our panel. I would just invite, I saw Kirsten bring on her takeoff. Is there something you needed or wanted to add, Kirsten, as well?
I was just thinking, what about the things that you were talking about, Helen Benigni? Do you mean pre-Indo-European or do you mean proto-Indo-European?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Pre or proto is the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
Oh,
Pre is
explain the
before
difference to me.
Indo-Europeans came to Europe, and the Basque, the Sami people, and so on, they have not an Indo-European and not an proto means a very early stage of a
Right.
language, which they didn't have. They have another kind of language. When pre is before, means before Indo-European. So I was just wondering what you meant.
I guess I meant Proto-Indo-European before the Indo-Europeans got there, the Neolithic culture.
You mean the pre
Yeah,
Indo-European?
okay,
Oh,
right.
the
Yeah.
coexisting. Yeah.
But they are not the Indo-European languages. Those that you mentioned, they still have a very old Stone Age variant of. And I think, how do we know about that this calendar is from Neolithic? How do we know? How do you know? Can we be able to trace that? We have no.
Well, most of the evidence comes from archaeology, and the calendar is recorded on Stonehenge. Stonehenge records the 55-night cycle, the 19-year cycle, the 5-year cycle, the intercalary months, the equinoxes, the solstice. Stonehenge and all the stone circles record this in Europe. So they've been dated way back to the Neolithic. So that's the basic evidence, and they still work. They still work to the day. I mean, this you can still go to Stonehenge and see these same cycles. And you can go to Delphi and see the cycles. So it's, it's in the archaeology, of course.
It's because
And then Gimbutas has written books about the Neolithic culture. She's an archaeologist, and she wrote beautiful books about the Neolithic matrilocal culture. And my editor, Miriam Robbins Dexter, writes about it. So,
I'm not sure they were
we know, they've put together the information from it. And this calendar, was there. It's being used. And it still is used if you set up the stones. And Newgrange, the Irish, and Nowit and Loucrew, they use it. They still use it. The Druids still use it today. And
anyway, I think somehow, thank you, Helen. I think that this dualism that you, Helen, was mentioning is also one of the key things for us to really get into what it means. And it's perfect tool for warrior countries to ask, are you my friend, or otherwise you are my enemy? There's nothing in between. As soon as you have three, and I mentioned the child, you can take man, woman, and child, you can take anything. As soon as you have three, you have opened the dualistic way of thinking. And this is so hard because we have been marinated in dualistic way of thinking. And as soon as we start to think three as the minimum, it's not either, or should I do this or should I do that, either or. You can open it by start to thinking about three or multiple. And that is, I think, one of the hardest nuts we have to crack to understand what impact dualism has on us, because we have been taught that this is the way the world works, and it's not. You can have many other ways of thinking. This is how a warrior culture works. If you are not with me, then you are against me, and there's no other possibilities. And we need to take in all the colors. It's not black and white. It's a multiple, and you can do so many things. You have so many choices. It's not either or. But our brains, I think, are marinated, and we have to be get waking up to this understanding what patriarchy has done to our ways and our pictures in our heads. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you. We have about 5 more minutes. Maybe I do just want to say one more thing that I really appreciated and wanted to just add in, and Helen had mentioned the notion of rule and ruling. And it just, what came into my head was going back to Judy Grant's work came into my head, Blood, Bread, and Roses, and the menstrual cycle as being one of a measurement, another form, and ruling being measuring, to measure. So I just feel that each of your beautiful presentations has brought us into how do we measure, right, our lives within this beautiful cosmic earth and calendrical dance that we live within. And so just coming back into taking the measure of our lives through these systems that gave birth to us, and that you each have presented so beautifully to us today and given us so much to think about. And in that kind of dynamic, we just got into some edges around debating and figuring out. And I think it's a beautiful thing to think about beyond the duality and beyond the duality. So I think that would be my closing words as your moderator. I don't know if I want to open anything else up. There's so much more to say. Perhaps there's another time to discuss this more. Freya, yourself as discussant, is there anything else you'd like to add? We have one audience member, but we've taken up our time, so.
I just want to say thank you so much for involving me in this wonderful discussion. I've learned so much from everyone, and it's given me a lot more to think about as well, which is always good.
Okay, thanks.
That's good.
Thank you.
Helen, you and I are just beginning.
It's only the beginning.
We will continue, but let's not take it anything personally or anything. You just let it open. It's just put it on the table.
No, I'm very interested in the 13-month calendar, and I hope you would all be interested in the Druid calendar as well. But I'm finding I think both can coincide. They may have differences, but Western culture and Eastern culture and Nordic culture, should come together. And celebrate those differences.
Okay.
And similarities.
Yes, of course. I appreciate your work and your input. And maybe over time, it's not just right now, but over time, there we just some sort of leveling out. Our methodology, our focus is different. Your focus, different. So leveling, checking our methodologies, and then leveling out is important because we don't want to be individualistic always. Okay, it's you, and I am I, and we don't meet any. No, but somehow, because we are dealing with metricentric, pre-patriarchal cultures, there should be some common ground for us, right? So I'm open, and I don't mean to, but I think I might say a lot of things like that, because this Budoji just woke me up so much about patriarchy. It's a dualism, and 12 months, they chose 12 months because you can be a dualistic, divide into a 6 and 6, right? So it's
Right.
easy to handle reductionism. That's what I wanted. Reductionism, patriarchy is all about reductionism. We lose all the details.
I do not support the patriarchy on. I do not support especially the current one on any level.
But you know, when you say what patriarchy, that also we have all different consciousness. Like, you know, how do you see it like that? Because that's why it's not something that I am aware. It's not because we're just pulled into it. We're using all Gregorian calendars, so we're pulled into this whole world is pulled into it. So we're not exceptional for that, right? So in that sense.
I'm really excited about this 18-year cycle, right? That's another, we're coming into that as by the moon and the Neolithic monuments measuring that. So there is something beautiful about closing and rebirthing right now in this moment.
January
Really,
13th, the full moon of January
I
13th.
think that's really a time to do something individually and collectively around that full moon into the Gregorian New Year.
I appreciate your passion, and I don't mistake that personally. I love your passion about your subject, and I appreciate learning about it. Every time I'm with you, I learn more about it. So
do I. I see a lot of passion in you, which is
yeah.
fascinating. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. You know, we have one audience, Sehwan Kim. He came actually. I know him by. He said that he said that I appreciate you all. Please read his comment. Maybe Sehwan, you want to say something? He's gone already. Oh no. Okay.
He's there.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And
I'm
Yeah,
just
he's there.
listening and learning from you all. Thank you.
beautiful. Thank you for being here, Sehwan. And we're at 11 o'clock, so I would like to close our gathering for the day. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
We head into the solstice
Thank you,
season.
Freia. And thank you, both of you, Helen.
Thank you.
Very giving.
Thank you. Nice to see
Kirsten,
you all.
sometime I would love to talk about Helen Hye-Sook. The two, they seem so similar.
Helen Hye-Sook, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Hal, because you said Hal is winter and Hecate too. So I'd love to talk about that. I'd like to learn
Yeah.
more about the goddess Hal.
Definitely, we will continue. Okay, the conference would be the one, right? And then I don't know. Everybody's so busy, even Freya. Oh, geez.
I think it's a good idea, the conference, to do a panel around,
Yeah,
finding some of these threads that you could pull out more together.
definitely.
Yeah.
Right? Because we
Spin, Helen spin. I'm spin. We'll spin them and pull them out.
In the Helens.
yes.
I have to go too, folks, so I really appreciate our time together, and I'm going to close us. If you want to finish the recording and stay on together, Helen, I'd invite you to do that, but I'll have to leave now.
Okay, I'm closing it now. So
Okay.
long. Have a good night, good day.
Day.
So much. Bye.